Your depth doesn't make you desirable, it makes you a threat. Why not because you're cruel, but because you see what others bury. A man who sees cannot be tamed. Picture a man in a shadowed room, his phone glowing with her unread messages. He doesn't move. The silence isn't peace. It's a blade slicing through the lie he lived for her approval. Her words echo in his mind hollow, a performance he can no longer stomach. Kierkegaard wrote, "People demand freedom of speech to compensate for the freedom of thought they rarely use." You thought love was your refuge. It wasn't. It was a cage built on the illusion that her validation could make you whole. The intelligent man, the one who dares to think, becomes dangerous by refusing to stay locked in. He questions the transactional nature of affection, the dissonance in her eyes, the shallow roles society demands he play. Here we don't romanticize pain. We name it. We watch it burn. Subscribe not to feel good, but to feel again. The descent begins with obsession, a hunger you mistook for love. You chased her validation like it was oxygen, believing love meant performing, playing the provider, the protector, the puppet. You molded yourself to her expectations, forcing smiles at her shallow games, swallowing truths that tasted like ash. Every compromise carved pieces from your soul, leaving you hollowed out, a stranger to yourself. The silence after she left wasn't empty. It was calculated, a mirror, exposing how much you'd erased to be chosen. You thought you were building intimacy, but you were building dependency. You mistook her chaos for passion, but it was just her fear of being seen. Kierkegaard warned, "The crowd is untruth." You followed the crowd's script, flatter, chase, conform, but the intelligent man cannot live in illusion. He peels back masks, sees the performance in her eyes, the gap between her words and her heart. That clarity isolates him, makes him a threat to a world that thrives on shallow compliance. Your body drove the chase, dopamine surged with her glances, adrenaline spiked in her chaos. You were a hunter, evolved to pursue, to conquer, to keep her. Every text she sent lit up your brain like a reward, every withdrawal left you starving. But the intelligent man's biology betrays him when the chase becomes a cage. He's not built to be a dog on a leash, fetching her approval. He's built to roam free, to seek truth, not comfort. Her withdrawal broke you open, leaving your mind in fragments. You questioned everything. Why does your silence unsettle her? Why does your depth scare her? You replayed every moment, searching for the flaw in you, but the flaw wasn't yours. She didn't ghost you because you were weak. She ghosted you because you made her your compass. You tethered your identity to her reactions, letting her moods dictate your worth. When she pulled away, you were left lost, a man without a map, drowning in the void of her absence. Spiritually, you abandoned your essence. Kierkegaard called it the sickness unto death, being estranged from your true self. You dimmed your insights, softened your words, laughed at her shallow games to keep the peace. You became what she wanted, not who you are. Your soul turned into an auction house, sold to the highest bidder of convenience. You traded your depth for her approval, your clarity for her comfort, until you looked in the mirror and saw a stranger, a man who had betrayed his own spirit to be loved. What if love was never the cure, only the mirror showing you what you refused to see? You thought she was your mirror, reflecting your worth back to you. She wasn't. She was a storm, chaotic and unyielding, pulling you into her orbit with every lightning strike of her emotions. You fought to anchor her, to calm her turbulence, but a storm cannot be held, it can only be endured. You felt the resistance grow. Your silence unsettled her. Your questions made her withdraw. She didn't fear your intelligence. She feared your refusal to be predictable, to be contained. In a society where predictability is mistaken for safety, your depth became a rebellion, your presence a judgment. Did she ever love you? or just love what you gave up to keep her. The collapse came when you stopped chasing shadows. You saw her for what she was, not a savior, but a test. You stopped begging for her to see. You stopped explaining yourself, stopped performing for her applause. Nietzsche wrote, "That which is done out of love always takes place beyond good and evil." Your love wasn't wrong, it was just misplaced, rooted in illusion instead of truth. You loved her chaos because you thought it was depth, but chaos is just noise. True depth is steady, quiet, unyielding. You walked away, not out of anger, but because your soul refused to be auctioned off any longer. That choice cost you everything. Shallow friends called you cold. She called you distant society, called you arrogant. But the intelligent man doesn't chase validation. He chooses clarity. And clarity is a storm that strips away everything false, leaving only what's real. You stood in that storm not as a victim, but as a witness watching the illusions burn. In the wreckage you found recognition. You weren't broken, you were becoming. Kierkegaard's Knight of Faith emerged a man who lives inwardly before outwardly, who doesn't need the crowd's applause to stand tall. You became a mirror, not a mask, reflecting truth, even when it burned those who looked into it. You stopped hiding your depth to be palatable, stopped softening your words to be accepted. You embraced your solitude not as a punishment, but as a proving ground. The intelligent man learns this. He doesn't tame the storm. He becomes the eye of it, unshaken, while it rages around him. The mirror he sought in her becomes the mirror he builds within a reflection of his own truth, not her illusions. Stillness doesn't mean silence, it means sovereignty. What if she wasn't running from you, but from what your clarity made her see in herself? The masculine paradox revealed itself. True strength is non-reaction. Let her rage, let her test, let her storms crash against you, hold the line. Because a storm that can't move you will learn to respect you, or it will break itself trying. You stopped seeking someone to fill your silence and started seeking someone who respects it. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Your power isn't in her approval, it's in your stillness, in your refusal to be summoned by her chaos. You learn to love differently, not as a performance, not as a transaction, but as a truth. You don't romanticize her unpredictability anymore. You seek alignment, not excitement. You want peace, not drama. And when you speak of love now, you speak of something sacred, not hormonal. A quiet, steady presence that demands nothing less than authenticity. The intelligent man doesn't bend to chaos. He stands as its counterpoint, a rooted force that cannot be swayed by emotional tides. Return to the original wound. You thought she was your mirror, reflecting your worth, but she was a storm, pulling you into her chaos. The lie you built your love upon was that you needed her to feel whole. You didn't lose her. You lost the man you became to keep her. Kierkegaard wrote, "Purity of heart is to will one thing. That one thing is your truth, not her validation." You scared her not because you were cold, but because you were clear, a man who cannot be manipulated, who cannot be seduced by illusions, who refuses to orbit anyone's chaos. You're no longer emotionally summoned by her storms. You stand anchored, a man who chooses, not chases. You don't need closure, you need clarity and a closed door. The intelligent man doesn't seek to be liked, he seeks to be aligned. And when you're aligned, the right ones will see you not because you impressed them, but because your silence echoes something they forgot within themselves. You've learned to walk alone, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity, because most paths lead to noise, and you choose truth over comfort, depth over distraction. The pain remains a still ache in your chest, not softened by resolution. You see now what you couldn't. Before, the cost of awakening is solitude, the price of clarity is rejection. But in that solitude you found something unshakable, a sovereignty that no storm can touch. If you've walked through this fire, comment
Thank
below,
you for watching.
so no
Walk your
man
path
feels
with
like he's
quiet
breaking
strength.
alone. If this truth shook something awake and you share it, there's a man out there still sleeping. You were not made to orbit her. You were made to rise still unshaken.